Let's get started with UiPath and Agentic AI automation. I've set up a fresh Windows 11 computer where I will show you how to install UiPath and how to use these very cool features. Let's get started. To set up a free UiPath account, you navigate to uipath.com. Up in the right corner, you click Try UiPath Free. And here you will fill in your work email and choose a password and hit Create Account. Tell UiPath a bit about yourself. I will do this. My country is Denmark. So I'll find it here. My organization is called Jensen Org, and my job title will be Instructor Consultant. I'll also recommend to say yes to send me information about UiPath products, because then you will get updated about all the news from UiPath. Then you hit next. Here you will choose a organization name. I'll just go with Jensen Org. We also want a data storage region to be defined. I will choose Europe as I'm in Europe, but if you are in the States or, for example, India, you will just choose those. Then we will create the organization. Wait a few seconds. Up in the upper right corner, you will see the download center. We will go in there. Here we can download either the Community Edition or the Enterprise Trial Edition. The Community Edition will be the full suite. It will be available for you forever for private use. I will go with the Enterprise Trial Edition. This will be a 60-day trial because we are going to use some of its advanced features. What you want to do is to click Download. Then in the upper right corner, the installer will start. I will fast forward. That's it. You can either just directly click Open File here or find this installer file in your downloads. So we click Open File, then the installer will start in like 10 seconds. That's it. We will just go with the recommended setup. That will be the quick guide here. And I will choose to accept the terms in the license agreement and hit Install. Then we will let it finish. In the middle of the installation, it will ask you if you want to install the UiPath extension for Edge. We want to do that so we can automate browser tasks. So I will close down my Edge browser and hit OK. Then you can see here that my Edge browser processes is still running in the background. Do we want to force close them? Just hit OK and the installation will continue. The installation is finished. We can choose to launch the UiPath Studio here, but let me close it. Each time you want to launch UiPath Studio, you can either use the created desktop shortcut or simply just navigate to your Windows 11 Start menu and search for the UiPath Studio. Go start UiPath Studio. Here we will need to sign in to get started. I click Sign In. Then the browser will open. As you can see, I can turn on the UiPath browser extension. Let's do that. So I'll hit Turn on Extension. I'll also need to log in here. This will be with the credential that we made before. So I'll choose with my email here, and then I will pick the email which I signed up with before. Then you paste in your password and click Sign In. Hit Open. Then your UiPath Studio will be connected to your tenant. You can now minimize your browser here. And this is a welcome. You can take some tutorials or watch the video like a video. This, I'll just choose to don't show it again and hit Close. You have installed the UiPath Studio. Let's build our first UiPath Agentic AI automation. For this, I prepared a demo system for you to use. You will find it by opening up a browser. Then you type in this URL. It's also in the description below. If this is your first time, you will need to react to this cookie pop-up, and there will be a password to access the system. I will fill it in, and it's also in the description below. So this is the system that we want UiPath to automate today. It needs to fill in a username like this, a password like this, click login. Then it needs to look at these invoices, and it needs to find out which one of these has the highest priority, and then it will extract information. Let's get started with that. So we go to UiPath Studio. Here you will click New Process. We can give our process a name. So I will call this Get Invoice Data and hit Create. That will open up our first UiPath Studio project. Here it will load a few dependencies. Once it has done that, we can start automating. So here you can also see if it's your first time, we can get a little tutorial. Let's skip all of this and click Dismiss, and I will maximize my UiPath Studio. For the new ScreenPlay actions to work, that is actually where we can just automate with our words, you will go up to Manage Packages. Here you can see the UI automation activities right now. We want to update it. So I click Update here and hit Save. This will update it to the newest versions. You will get preview features all the time from UiPath. Very cool features. So make sure that you also enable the preview features. I can go up again to Manage Packages, click this, go over to this and say Include Pre-Release. Then once you click it again, you can see that we can now update it to a preview version. Let's do that to get all the coolest features in. Then we have the actions that we're going to use. First, we need to tell UiPath in which system that we want to work. You will see the activities over to the left. These are predefined code blocks. In the middle, you will see the canvas. This is where we build a sequence of actions. To the right, you right now see properties. These will be properties tied to what we build here in the canvas. Let's get started, you and I. Please do it with me. You will learn so much faster. You go up to Activities. Then you find an Use Application Browser. We just drag it in here. What you need to do now is to indicate an application to automate. So click here. Then you go to your browser and you should see that you can select your browser. When it turns green, you can just click with your mouse. Now we're automating this system. This could also have been an application or another web page. First, since we are here, we need to log into this page. That was the first step, remember? So if I do like this, refresh the page, this will be the first step. We will use the new ScreenPlay, and this is so amazing. So search for ScreenPlay, and then you will drag it in here to the do. This means that we work in this application, and in the do, we define what it needs to do. Here you can see that this is an experimental feature. Let's just say we accept whatever the features are. Here we will define a task and a model. So our task will be to log into the system. So I'll say log into this site using, let's say Anders is the username as username and UiPath demo as password. In the real world, you don't want to store credentials like this, but since it's a demo, it's completely fine. Then we can also go to the model here. Here we can choose the model. The default, if I don't do anything, that is OpenAI's GPT 4.1 model, but I can choose to use Anthropic or the Operator or the Google Gemini. Let's just go with the default model. That will be this. Leave everything as it is. I also want to close the system because we want to see it work. Then I also want to say what is going to happen when this ScreenPlay has performed. I can define that by clicking the outer area here, that is the Edge Invoicing Hub, and then I go over to the right. Hit Properties down here. These are the properties tied to this application when what we're going to do. Here over in the options, we can choose to, should it close the application after it's done? Right now, the default is that it will close if opened by this use application browser. Let's just say that we want to leave it open. I can say never. Usually when you're done here, you want to close it again. But for now, I want to keep it open because we want to automate more. Now we can start to see, does this work? What you can do up here is to go to debug file. If I do that, then it will compile my activities and it will start the process. You will see that it opens up this, and then the ScreenPlay will start to work in a few seconds. Here it's still a little bit slow. Remember that this is preview. It's completely amazing. Yes, we could do this quicker ourselves, but imagine that this run on a virtual machine, then the ScreenPlay can just handle everything. And this will of course speed so much up in the coming month. Now you see that the UI agent, that is the ScreenPlay, works. So it identifies that it needs to log in here, that it puts the username in here, the password in there, and then it clicked the login, and we're now in the system. It also didn't close the page, so it works. What we can do now is that, and again, this feels like magic, is to go back to the studio. Here we will see no errors. I also want the system to extract the information of the pending invoice, that will be this, with the highest priority. Let's see if it's able to do that. So what I can do here is to go back. We will just choose another ScreenPlay. So if it's not already here, you can search for it here. Then we can drag in a ScreenPlay after this. Again, we can choose the model. However, the default is exactly the one that we choose. Now I want to read the information. So let's just say read the information. You just describe what you want in your everyday words. So I say read the information of the pending invoice with the highest priority. Save to a JSON structure. A JSON is just a way of notifying data. That is a structure. The benefit of this is that it will always be in the same structure. So when we automate, it's very easy to send data from one system to another. So here we say save to a JSON structure with the properties. And then I can say, I want to say invoice number. I want to say customer and amount. Again, you could describe this with your everyday words. We're going with the default, so you actually don't have to touch it. Then I also want to save the data because now we are generating a JSON. So it extracts the data from the web, so it does web scraping, and then it will save it. We will create a variable here. So what you want to do is to hit Control-K, that will create a new variable. Let's call this one invoice data and hit enter. So you have now created your first variable. A variable is a container for a value. You can also see it if you go down here to variables. We have created a new variable of the type string. I also see that the scope is do. That is exactly where we are. Hit variables again, and then this will collapse. Let's also inspect the value of the invoice data. For that, we will do a log message. This is just to see that could we actually extract this data, or could the ScreenPlay do it? So drag in a log message after the second ScreenPlay. Here I want to put in the invoice data. I can start by typing. You will see that the intelligence shows up. If this intelligence does not show up, you can always press Control Space and it will be here. I can just go down to invoice data, hit the tab, and this will be what is printed out. So now my automation is improved. Let's see that everything works again. Let's debug the file. That is, we will see if everything works. Of course, when this automation should go to production, that is to handle real business issues, then we of course want to run it unattended. We will set this up in this guide as well, so stay tuned. We will learn so much here. Let me fast a little bit forward when the ScreenPlay interacts with the web page. Here you see it logs in. You can also see the little green icon on your taskbar. So if you're curious, is my little process still working? Then yes, if this little green is on. When it disappears, we are done. So right now it's looking at all these invoices in this table and deciding which one has the highest priority. We want to recognize that, and then we want to extract it in a JSON so we can send it further on in our process. When the green icon is gone, we go back to the UiPath Studio. So we want to inspect the output of this log message. You will find it in the lower left corner where it says output. Here you can see a lot of information about when we run the process. And if you scroll down here to the second last line, you will see that it says invoice number as we instructed it in inv 1010 customer kappa amount 11,000. You will also see that this is in a JSON structure. You can see that by the curly brackets in the start and in the end, and then comma separated key value pairs. This is exactly what we're going to use. However, it's in a format that we have difficulties in understanding, but we can use another very nice feature from the UiPath software suite to help us here. So let's first go up to this line, then you will right click and hit copy. We can close the output again by clicking it over here. Now we want to, after this log message, we want to have actions that will extract these values and turn them into variables. So what we will do here is to go over to the Autopilot. You will find it here in the lower right corner. And this again feels magical. Wait and see. Go up and hit generate sequence here. Now you can see that we can generate a sequence. So here again, we tell with our words what it should generate, and then it will create the actions. So it's not like ScreenPlay where we give it independence to just log in or extract the data. Here we will say what we need, and then it will create the actions for us. So what we want to do, we want to say extract the values of, and let's just say Control V because we are lazy. And then we will say extract the values of the invoice number. We also want the customer and the amount. And amount. So let's go delete this. And then we can say and save to variables of the same name. Then I want to also convert the amount to a decimal. This is a variable type, which we will talk more about. I also want to give an example of the JSON. In my opinion, that makes the best results. I can either do it in the end or in the start. So if I do it in the start, I think it makes most sense because then it will see this JSON and then we will give it the instructions, but I think it will be the same. Feel free to try it out. Then you will hit generate. Now it will build my sequence, that is UiPath Studio. The Autopilot will just build the actions that I have described here. Really nice feature, and look what it's doing. It will define the input JSON string. It will parse it. So if I'm satisfied with all of this, I just hit confirm. Then it will also install the packages. You can see here CSV helper. I can just hit accept. Now it will update my project, and this is so nice. So just wait a few seconds. Imagine that we are not able to do all of this. Now the Autopilot just created it for us. Let's inspect what it's actually doing. So here we had the log message with the invoice data. We're not really using that because the invoice data comes out from the ScreenPlay action, but let's just keep it here. Then it will define the JSON string. So it says that the JSON string is the invoice data. Then it will pass the JSON string that will be to extract the details from the JSON string. And what it does here is quite magical, because this will output a JSON object, and now it will say that I will save it to the invoice number, customer, amount, string, and an amount, where we are looking into the JSON object, takes the invoice number out and say to string, which will convert it to a string. Imagine that we will have to do these expressions ourselves. We probably we can't do that, since right now we're just UiPath beginners. So use Autopilot to speed up your learning curve. It's completely fine that you don't understand all this. Please just do it with me, then you will see a lot of cool things. We can also see that we actually have 4 variables here. We also have the amount string, which we will not use. But let's close the site again. Now I want to see that this also works. So I hit debug. Whenever I hit debug or run, this will also save my project. So you will see that you don't have to save it. And now I will speed up the process again. I will let the ScreenPlay, the UiPath, log in independently here, extract the data, and also convert these data to variables so we can use it later in the process. Now it's logging in, but let's fast forward. That's it. We can go back to the automation. Again, we have no errors. But I want to inspect that we actually have values saved to the invoice number, the customer, and the amount. I can do that with another log message, or we can do a message box. Message box is a box that gets shown to the user, and because we have not used it before, let's try that. Usually I use it when I'm developing solutions like here, and I quickly want to inspect results. Here we need to quote our text. That is because the coding language, the inline coding languages in these actions are VB.NET. So I just do this, and then I type whatever I need to type. So again, let's just talk a little bit about the invoice number variable. It gets created up here, and we can see that it gets converted into a string. So even though that this looks like a number maybe, then it will be a string. However, the amount, that will be a decimal. So here I want to just write a quick debug. I want to say the invoice number is, and then a space. Then I can say plus. Now I want to write this invoice number out. I can just go find it here in the menu by double clicking it. So now it will use a text that will be in double quotation marks, and since this is a variable, it will use the variable. So I will do this, and then you will see this warning is gone. Then we can also say plus, and let's do a space, and maybe just a comma here. The customer is the space, and again, you know the drill, just find the customer here. You can expand this text field, so we can do this, and it's a little bit easier to see. And then we want to combine it with plus and the amount is space. Then we want to say control space and amount. I know we have it as a string, but if we want to do like this, you will see that we still get an error. That is because we cannot write out a decimal. So what I will do here is to say dot and then to string. Then we also had our first VB.NET expression, a really simple one. Then we hit save, and then I want to test it. So let's close down the browser again, and we hit debug file. Yes, we could have tested these variable values in a lot of other ways, but we do this progress to simply learn something new over and over in this video. So right now you also learned about the message box, and you have learned a little bit about the coding language in UiPath. Let's again fast forward over all of this. We know that this works. We just want to see the message box. And the automation is not done yet, but you should see a message box here. If it's not, you can click the icon and then you see it. So actually here you can see that we're able to extract all of these values, and we saved it to this message box, which we will not use. But for now, when I click OK, then the process stopped. That is completely fine. We know that all of this works. Then what I usually do is simply just to mark the message box, click delete. I'm not going to use that. When we build UiPath processes, we are getting a lot of data that we no longer need. For example, these activities, but also, for example, variable names. Right now we deleted one, so let's go clean a little bit up. I do that by going to variables here. Here you will see the amount string. We're not using that anymore, so simply just right click and hit delete. It's gone. What we're going to use is the invoice number, the customer, and the amount. Since we're going to use it in other processes, we want to convert it from a variable to an argument. This means that it can be sent out to another process. So right click the invoice number, say convert to argument. Now you will see it's over here. You also want to say that this value will go out of our process. So the direction is out. You hit in this direction and call it out. You do the same thing for the other two. And in case you go back here and see nothing, that is just because you need to click anywhere on one of these actions inside the do or the do itself. Then we want to take the amount here, convert it to an argument. Also change the direction to out. Do the same thing once more. That will be the customer here. With that in place, we have built our first process. So again, we could go up here and hit save, and we can close down this. Now we need to publish it to Orchestrator. Orchestrator, that is another UiPath product. Here we will handle the processes. So here we can trigger things. We can save these packages so several developers can work on the same process and update it accordingly. You can do a lot of things, and to publish it to Orchestrator, you just go up here and hit publish. Then this will open. Here, the package name is get invoice data. We will just let it be here. You can also see that the current version is 1.00, and our version, that will be the first, is 1.01. You can change all of this, but since we are not really want to do that, we will just hit publish. This will publish it to Orchestrator. What you want to do now is just to hit OK. Let's inspect the Orchestrator briefly. So you find Orchestrator by opening up a browser, and then you can just write cloud.uipath.com. That will log into the automation cloud. So click these 9 black dots up here and hit Orchestrator. This will open up your Orchestrator. We are in the My Workspace, and just so you can see here it's called info at Anders Jensen's org workspace. This is your personal folder, which is fine for now. If I go back to Orchestrator, you can hit the automations and you will see your process here. That will be the get invoice data, including the version. That is fine. Now we want to create the second part of the invoicing handling process. First, we extracted the information. Now we want to set the status to be paid, if it's okay to pay the invoice, and we also want to log the results to a local file on our Windows desktop. Let's get started. To create a new project, you again go into UiPath Studio. I closed it, so I'll open it again. We go up to New Project Process, go click that, and we will give the process a name. I will call it Set Invoice Status, hit Create. This will open the process. And then we're going to automate the same web page as before. Let me just open up a browser like this. And in case you need to log in again to come to this page, the password is down here. Now I need to log in again, and then let me just show you after I logged in. We need to find the invoice with the highest priority and set this drop down to paid. So, and that is, if I go to pending, you can see these 4 guys here are pending, and this one has the highest priority. Let's refresh the web page. Now you will see the invoicing hub again. Then I go back to UiPath Studio. So we again go up to Manage Packages, click the UI automation activities here. Make sure you have the include pre-release and hit update. Then you hit save and the activities will update, so we will have the newest AI activities. Then we are ready to automate when the dependencies have been restored. So first we need to say which application do we automate in, and that will be the browser. As you can see over here, I have a few favorite actions. Let me remove these again, just so you can see how we add them. We also have some reasons. If I want to find a use application browser, it's both in recent and it's down here in the UI automation. To add a activity to the actual favorites, I just right click and say add to favorites. Then it will show up here. No difference, they are just easier to reach when you automate. Then we drag this one in. I will indicate the application, so go click here. This turns green, click it. Now this is the system that we're automating. Then I also want to make sure that this is marked. Go to Properties. In the options, let's choose to never close this system. That is just so it's open, so we can see it changes the drop down. We will use ScreenPlay again. So go search for ScreenPlay and drag it in. ScreenPlay just again lets me, with my own words, automate what I want. The model, we will use the default, so we can just let it be, or again, pick it here, doesn't matter. The result we will leave blank, we will take no result out, and we will define a task. You can see that we get a warning here that the task field is required. So let's go fill that one in. Here I will say log in to this site using Anders as username and UiPath demo as password. Like this. Then set the status of the pending invoice with the highest priority to paid. Only set the highest priority to paid. You will see that there's still a warning, but if you click away from this field, for example up to this bar, this will disappear. Then we can test that it works. So go up and click Debug File. This will open up the browser. Then it will automate So it will first get rid of everything it doesn't need, and then it will start to fill in the username and password automatically, just as it did before. So let's fast forward because we've already seen this, and this can take a few. That's it. Then we want to see that the kappa limited will be set to status paid. So now it gets an overview. There you go. Now our automation is done. Then we can talk a little bit about, once this is over, what do we want to do now? So I want to log this data to a local text file. That is, I want to save the information. So it's still running here. As you can see that the screen field, that's it. Now we want to log it. So what we want to do here would be to create a folder on our desktop. This is where we will log the information to. So right click, folder. So we want to write the invoice information to a file in this archive. Let's call this one invoices ready to pay, and that will be in our desktop. Let's right click and copy as path. Then we have the path to this folder in our clipboard. It doesn't need to be at the desktop. That's just where I choose to be. Let it be. So let's go back to Studio. We will also create arguments for the invoice number, the customer, and the actual amount. We found those. So what we can do here is to create arguments. These ones will be ingoing, just as we did before with the outgoing. This will be the invoice number. We will have it as a string, and then we can give it a default value just so we see that it works. Let's, in double quotation marks, because it's a string, say something like 2234. Doesn't matter, just to test. We will also have the customer as an ingoing. Let's just let this be blank, or simply just say Anders Jensen. Then we can have an amount. This will be a decimal. We cannot see it here, so I can say browse for types, and then I can find it. This is just a variable type that lets us have a decimal number. So now you will see it says decimal here, and here, since this is not a string, I can do something like this, and I can say .67. Then this will be the amount. These are just default values. Of course, in the real world, these values will come in from our order flow, and they will be dynamic. But for now, this is good. So we have the path to the folder where we want to log to in our clipboard. Let me make this. Again, we want to have these actions to be created automatically. So here, instead of just leaving it to ScreenPlay, I could also use the Autopilot. Go up to create sequence, and then we just write what actions we want. First, I want to say check if the folder, then you say Control V, since it's in our clipboard, exists. If not, create it. Then create a text document in the folder. It must have the name of the invoice number argument and contain the values of the customer and amount arguments. Then you hit generate and you wait 20 to 30 seconds. And this is magic. Let's see what it has done first after the ScreenPlay, which we created before. It checks if this folder does exist. And here you can see it correctly escapes the backward slashes in the file path with another backward slash. This will be saved into a folder exists variable. If I go down to variables, I can see that this folder exists is of the type Boolean. A Boolean can be either true or false. That makes sense. So here it asks in this condition, does this not exist? Then you should create the folder. As you can see, we're using the file path here and here. The more elegant solution would have been to create a variable. I should have included that in the prompt, but for now it works perfectly fine. This is also what it warns about here, that absolute paths are not recommended. A variable would have been better because then I could just change the value once if I want to update this file path, but this will work, no problem. Then it will construct the file path. So here it will combine the path with the invoice number variable, and it will use a .text as extension. This makes sense. It also creates these description itself. Then it says, what should I put in it that will be saved to the file content? And here it will extract the customer and the amount, and it will have a new line, which looks fine. And here it will create and write the content. All good. So I think we should test it. We will do that by debugging it again. Again, you will see that this first part will probably take like 10-15 seconds. It's magic for me as a developer, because soon you will no longer need me. You can do this all by yourself. And in case you are a developer, this will speed up the entire developing process. As you can see now, it works independently. And yes, this takes longer than a human could do. But again, then a human can get rid of all these boring manual tasks. And the speed of execution on these flows will only go up from here. All these things we have seen worked. What we want to know now is that it actually can save the information to the local file. And when done, of course, we knew that all this worked. So I can close this and let us go to the folder on the desktop. Here you can see we now have a file and we will have the correct information in. So let us close this. What I want to do now is to publish this process to Orchestrator as well. So again, I hit publish. Here it will be called set invoice status, the package. The new version will of course be the first, so it will be 1.0.1. We will hit publish. It will publish to Orchestrator. Again, we can find these two in Orchestrator. So what I can do now is actually to close this, open up a browser, navigate to cloud.uipath.com, log in if it prompts you. You can find Orchestrator either here or, as I prefer, up here because it's just quicker. This is my Orchestrator. Now you can go into automations, and here you will find both of the processes that we have created. Since we updated the get invoice data and published a new version, you will see that the version here is 1.0.2. Hey, if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. That will really help me and my channel a lot. Thank you. Now let us go to UiPath Maestro and combine everything. UiPath Maestro is a fantastic place where we can combine RPA automations, AI agents, system and people. You will find it by clicking these 9 dots up here and choose Maestro. Then you want to click Start Modeling to create your first Maestro model. So this is a diagram. We will add some events and a condition, but first let's rename it. Right now it's called Agentic Process. You can also see that name up here. So let's open up the Project Explorer, right click this Agentic Process and choose Rename. Let's call this one Invoice Flow and save it. Now we will create the events over here in this diagram. It will start here. Then we want our 2 processes to run with a condition. So let's start adding a task. You will click this one up here while having the start event clicked. That will add a new task. We can give it a name here by typing in, or we can just go over here. Let's call this one get invoice data. The action will be, if I click this dropdown, start and wait for RPA workflow. Then we want to choose an automation. And here we see that we can pick our get invoice data. You can also see that we have our arguments, the output arguments here. We can use these later in this diagram. Now let's say we want to evaluate. We only want to continue with the other RPA process if the amount is less than 10,000. So what you can do here is to click the Get Invoice Data, and then we make a gateway. A gateway can move into different directions. We will add an action to that. We will get a little error here, don't worry, we will fix it in 2 minutes. So now you choose Add Task More, and then you can see we have the error. Over here we want to finish invoice handling like this. The action should be start and wait for RPA workflow, and the automation will be the set invoice status. Then we will map these. That will be the values that we got out of here. We will have them as ingoing. So invoice number, that will be invoice number. And this is a smart suggestion. You could also have found it down here if it didn't show up here. Similar with the customer, I can choose it here or down here. And the amount, let's go pick that. Then I also want to say, if I click here, I also want to add an end event. So this node here will stop. I can choose to give it a name. So what I want to name this will be greater than 10,000 end like this. So down here it will end. Up here I can also rename this gateway. That could be called greater than 10,000 like this, so we can see what's actually going on. Then we also have these 2 arrows. So here I can say if I click this arrow, I can add a condition. Right now I want to add a condition. I only want to continue over here if the amount is less than 10,000. So I click this condition, make sure you have clicked this arrow up here. Click the condition here and say expression editor. Now we want to create an expression. You can say vars dot, and then you want to pick the amount like this. I can use the tab to automatically choose that. And then I want to say if that is less than 10,000, then I will continue over here. Then you click save. Now you want to click the other arrow here, and we want to make that as default path. So if this is not true, then it will go down here. We should also, if I go up here to finish invoice handling, add an end event here. So this one will be the less than 10,000 end up here. So now we have a diagram. We have everything controlled to Maestro. If the invoice is okay to be paid, then it will be paid up here. Or if it's not, then it will just remain as pending. Now we want to test this. Of course, this is very simplified. This was an introduction for you to Maestro, but we want to see that this works. What you can do is to go up to debug here. You will see that you get an error in a little while. We will talk about that. Here you see that you get an error here, and soon you will have an error up here. If I go click this, now it says that we need an unattended license. So let's go set that up, and now we also have the arrow up here. Setting up an unattended robot here in UiPath can be a little bit tricky. Just follow these steps. So I think we will let this Maestro diagram be open, because then we can test it when we have set up the invoice, the unattended robot. You also want to make sure that we still have this UiPath Assistant open, because I want to set it up here, right here on this computer. So what you do is to keep this open. I could go back here or open a new tab. So you want to go to cloud.uipath.com if you don't have this open. Then you can go up here to the 9 dots, and we want to move to Orchestrator. Let's first check that we actually have a license. So I go up to tenant, then I can choose machines here. And here in the workspace machine, I can click here. I can say edit machine. And here you can see that runtimes can be assigned to this machine after this license is activated. Over here, we want to add a runtime license. Right now I can. If you already have one unattended here, you don't need to do more. But if you have it like me, then we want to add a license. We will do that in 2 steps. So I'll go to admin, go to licenses, go to robots and services, and down here in the default tenant, I will click the edit license allocations. Make sure that you pick at least one unattended and hit save. That's it. We can go back to the orchestrator, tenant, machines, go over here, choose edit machine. And now you can see here, I can add up to 1 unattended license to this. I will click update. Then we also need to do one thing more. So what I want to do is to make sure I'm in tenant here. I want to click manage access, users. Then you want to go down to your user, click the 3 dots and say edit. Go down to enterprise setup, click this drop down, and here in the enterprise robot setup, I'll choose the custom Windows credentials. Here we want to make sure that I delete this, and I want to find my Windows credentials. That is the domain and username. The easiest thing to do would be to go down to the start, find the command prompt by typing cmd, open that, say who am I, and here you have your domain and username. Let us just mark it, Control C to copy it. Now you want to say Control V to paste it in here. Then I also want to type in my password here. So I'll just pause the video and type in my password. That's it. Then I can say update. Here you want to say save edits and see the save is successful. Now we have assigned 1 unattended license. So everything will work now. If I go back to the invoice flow, I can hit debug, and you might want to wait a few seconds or maybe up to 1 minute. Here you go. Now you can see that our flow is indeed opening up the invoicing hub, and it will start to process the data. That's it. Then the get invoice data has been received. Now it will continue to the next action. Here we can see that this invoice was indeed greater than 10,000, so it finished down here. That's how easy it is to get started with UiPath. Your next UiPath video is right here.